What is up, everybody? What is it, Wednesday? Happy Wednesday? Pretty sure it's Wednesday. You lose track of time and shit whenever you work from home. Happy Wednesday. So I'm getting ready to go on vacation this weekend, taking the family out to a cabin in North Georgia from Thursday through Monday. I'm going to try to get a couple of things recorded so I can still have some reviews drop, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, over the next couple of days. But yeah, I haven't done a Q&A. Wow. Haven't done a Q&A in a while. So I figured I would hang out, BS with everybody for a bit. We'll do this for at least an hour, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how many questions I have and how much my daughter entertains herself at the moment. Just took her to see Elemental. I have my other daughter coming home, so of course when she gets here, there might be some company. So we'll see how it goes. But nonetheless, just a little impromptu, spontaneous little Q&A. So hope everybody's having a good day. Weather is extra shitty here in Georgia right now. Just rain all week. Rain, 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 rain. All right, let's see what we got. What is your favorite store-bought popcorn? Not that I've tried a bunch of them, but Orville Redenbacher is the only one that I like that I've tried. I'm kind of weird with popcorn. Ever since I had braces as a teenager, popcorn annoys me to eat it. Even the movie theater popcorn, because it gets stuck in my teeth and it annoys me. So the really good theater popcorn, if it tastes great, I'll just kind of ignore it and just eat it, and I'll be fine. But most of the store-bought stuff is even worse about like the kernels and stuff. So Orville is the only one that I think comes close in taste and with the level of tolerance that I have for unpopped kernels and everything. But I haven't done like a taste test, so there might be one that's better. Oh, let's see here. Saw you and your daughter enjoyed Elemental. We did. I didn't have any interest in that movie. I didn't think the trailers were all that great. Pixar really hasn't done much for me here lately. Now, I haven't seen a number of their last, you know, 2 years of movies, post-COVID movies, but the ones that I have seen didn't do much for me. Lightyear didn't do a whole lot for me. And so I saw the trailer to this one. I'm like, whatever. I'll wait if I do see it, which probably not. You guys know how I am with animated movies nowadays. And my one daughter went off, so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll spend time with the other daughter so she doesn't feel left out. And so we went to go see it, and we both really enjoyed it. It was really good. It was very close. I put a tweet out and said it's the most classic Pixar feeling movie that I've seen from them in a long time. So we had a really good time with it. Favorite Pixar films: the original Toy Story is number one. The Incredibles is probably number two. Let's see, round out the rest of my top however many. Like Toy Story 2 and 3 are certainly in there. I thought The Incredibles 2 was awesome. Up is great. I really like Monsters Inc. Um Shit, what else am I missing? I know I'm missing some obvious ones. There's a lot that I actually haven't seen. Uh Me and the family really liked Inside Out when we saw that one. That one was good. Ratatouille is really good. So probably those. And Elemental. I would stick Elemental in there now that I've seen it. Okay. Oh, we got a whole bunch of super chats shining through. So let me do one more of these questions here at the top, and then I'll switch over to those. How long will the stream be? At like an hour minimum, 2 hours tops. Let's see. Are you excited for the new season of The Bear? You might have already watched it, but I remember you saying you're a big fan of the first season. Yeah, I'm really excited for it. The first season was a big surprise, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. If you guys haven't watched The Bear on FX, or it should be on Hulu, if you want to be able to watch it on a streaming service, really, really good show. It's the Jeremy Allen White, who a lot of you should know if you've seen the American version of Shameless, and he's basically this classically trained chef that comes back and tries to take over his brother's Italian beef sandwich shop in Chicago and just keep it going. And it's a really good dramatic show. It's really well done as far as just the how it's shot and how it's edited together. There's one episode, like 2 episodes before the end of the season, that has like the whole episode's like one shot basically. It's pretty insane. And for all of the shows that are out there with all these much darker premises, that's the most intense and tension-filled show that I've seen in recent memory. So really looking forward to season 2. All right. I love the fact now that StreamYard automatically stars and segments off all of the super chats. So I will no longer ever miss a super chat again. Sometimes it gets nuts with these Q&As and I can easily scroll past one and shouldn't be a problem anymore. Thank you, Xbox Glitches. Thank you, John N. Let's see. And let's see. Can I unstar them? I can unstar them. Okay, cool. That's even easier. Hey, old reliable Dale. Hope you're doing good, man. Like I told CP yesterday, I'll try to be more active like I used to be. Lots of drama with my dad. Keep rocking on. Well, no problem, dude. Hope you're doing okay. Are you a Horror Nights fan? Saw they were doing a Chucky house this year, and I'm curious to see how that'll be. I've always wanted to go check it out, but I have never been. And this was a year that I'm probably most interested because there's a Chucky house. I think there's a Stranger Things house or a Last of Us house, something like that. But the problem is it's so expensive to go. I was looking up prices for just me and my wife. And obviously, I would want to go to the park during the day. I don't want to just travel all that way to Orlando and get a hotel just for the haunted houses. So for us to go to the park for 2 days, including the Halloween Horror Nights thing at night, and get the fast pass, which I've been told by the guy that does my pest removal stuff in the house, like we get sprayed every 3 months or whatever just to kind of prevent maintenance, and he talks about it almost every time I see him. He said it's pretty much required. Sorry, I'm moving my monitors a little bit. He said it's pretty much required to get the fast pass. Otherwise, you're only going to have the time to sit through the lines for like 3 houses because they're really long lines. So for me and my wife to go to the park during the day and the haunted houses at night and have fast passes, this is not counting hotels. This is not counting gas to get there. This is not counting food or anything that we buy. It was like $2,500. And so I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I'm like, what the fuck, man? It's just, praise everybody, I guess, if you don't have kids. Fuck the kids. We're going on vacation by ourselves. So yeah, I really wanted to check it out, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Orlando's just gotten nuts. Like Disney World, they're out of their damn minds with their prices. Like I haven't been to Disney World in probably 5 years. And I took the family there when Riley was really young and she was too young to really appreciate it. So I was looking at prices to take all of them back here and they're astronomical. You're talking like for my family to go and have a decent time is like 5-6 grand. And it's like, what the fuck, man? Somebody's paying it though. First time joining your streams. You're a cool dude. Are you excited for the Five Nights at Freddy's movies? Well, I appreciate that. I'm curious about it. I don't really have much knowledge of the video game. I've never played it. I don't even know if it'd be my type of game, and I don't know what the movie specifically is going to be about, aside from just creepy animatronics, but I am curious about it. Here's to a good summer. Do you have any sci-fi horror films that you would recommend? Oh, a ton of them. I mean, you got all the obvious ones, of course. Aliens. You got Terminator. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Event Horizon. It's a really good one. That's like a sci-fi and horror. That's a question I have to prepare more for on the spot. It's a little hard, but I have a top 50 horror films, and we also did a 31 on 31 sci-fi edition. That a good amount of those movies are sci-fi horror as well. So check out those, and you'll get quite a few recommendations. Hello, Desi. Is it just me, or are the movies we've gotten this year just okay at best? Last year was such a good year for horror. This year feels so dry. Yeah, This year's been rough. And it's been draining for me because I'm trying. Last year I kicked it up quite a bit. This year I'm trying to do even more. I'm trying to watch as many new releases as I possibly can. And so the last 2 years I've been watching significantly more brand new movies than I ever have in my life. And last year it was easier to do that because there were so many great ones. This year has been rough. And I look at I don't really use Letterboxd. I don't really like it, but I usually keep a Letterboxd list throughout the year. At least I did last year, to keep track of the movies that I have watched throughout the year and kind of keep somewhat of a ranking of them, so that at the end of the year, when I do my ranking and the work's pretty much there, I just kind of look over it, see if I still agree. And so far this year, I've seen 50 new releases. And I looked at them, and while there's quite a few of those that I would give most of them I would give positive reviews for, and quite a few of them that I would say that I like. I looked at them and I'm like, how many of these movies do I love? How many of these movies am I really going to like passionately rewatch or remember this year for? And there was 2 out of 50. And so it's been rough, and it's been hard for me because you get these people that we live in a world, unfortunately, where nowadays it's like film reception is binary. It's either the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. And anything in the middle just doesn't compute for those people. So if you give something a 3.5, why'd you hate it? Why'd you hate it? And so I've had a lot of movies this year that fall into that middle camp where I'm like, 3 stars, 3.5 stars, 3.75. It's like, it's good, it's fine, it's enjoyable, it's whatever. And because I'm not like blowing a load walking out of the movie or coming out making 16 rant videos about it, it's just like it doesn't compute for certain people. And so I've had a lot of people say that I'm like a lot more negative now. And I'm like, how? Like 50 movies, I think less than 10 of them I've given a negative review to. But it's because of that. It's because I haven't walked out of them with this constant hyperbolic praise that you see with a lot of these early reaction tweets and everything nowadays, where it's just like, this is magnificent. This is mesmerizing. This is world changing. I'm shook. Like all these fucking insane thesaurus yanked terms. And so, yeah, when I look at the year so far, I'm like, hasn't been that great. It really hasn't. And it's about to slow down a lot because I don't know how long this writer's strike about to go down. So the next 2 years of movies, who knows what things are going to be. So yeah, I totally agree, especially in regards to horror. It's been a really, really lackluster year for horror. How deep do you dive into thrash metal? I love bands like Exodus Creator, Death Angel, Overkill. How about yourself? Not too deep, honestly. I'm pretty vanilla and boring when it comes to music taste. I'll admit that fully. So like bands like Metallica and Stained and Godsmack and Alter Bridge and those are all my favorites. All um the really deep dive stuff of like 80s metal and thrash metal, like pretty much all the bands that you've listed right there. I know a few songs by them, but I don't really actively listen to them. So yeah, not too deep. Fairly shallow with my music taste. Hey, Johnny from Ireland. I hope you're well. Hope you how do you avoid burnout now that you've been full time for a while? Well, that ties into exactly what I was just talking about with Desi. It's hard. It's hard because there's times where even movies that I'm excited for, I get ready to go and I'm just like, I'm just not in the mood to go to the movies. And I flush that out of my system so I don't let it affect my review or whatever. But yeah, it's been rough. I mean, there's been 2 different weekends this year so far that I've watched 3 films back to back in one night. And like I said, trying to watch a lot of new releases and trying to keep up with the gargantuan amount of streaming stuff that comes out, which I just more or less have to give up on, except for the rare exceptions. But yeah, it's hard not to get burnt out, especially in a year like this year, where for me personally, most of the releases that we've gotten fall into that like it's good, it's okay category. And so I don't really have, at least for this year, the rest of the year, that there's a few movies, but I don't really have any movies left this year where I'm just like, God, I can't wait to see that. Like Mission Impossible, I can't wait to see that. Um, might be it. I don't know. I'm forgetting some, but yeah, when you go to the movies every single week, even though I love movies, when you go every single week, and when mostly every movie that you watch has a couple hours of work tied to it, which is exhausting in its own right. And then nowadays the way that movie discussion goes is exhausting as well. I mean, like, Indiana Jones hasn't even come out yet, hasn't even released wide yet. I reviewed that a week ago, and there's a portion of the conversation of that movie that has already just been exhausting because you have people that it's a Disney product, so there's people that just want to hate on Disney because they ruined Star Wars for them or whatever. And so you have a lot of people in the comment section that, there have been leaks about the movie for a few months now, apparently, and I have not sought them out. I'm not somebody that cares about leaks. I want to experience the movie, not read them on bullet points on Reddit. And apparently there's a lot of the leaks that are false, but there are some leaks that are true. And I've had a lot of people just in my comment section that clearly have not seen the movie that are just trashing the movie, trashing the fact that some reviewers aren't admitting that it's garbage and saying that it's woke. You know, that word comes out. Every single thing that comes out nowadays is woke somehow. And so even movies like that, where it's just like a classic action adventure that's meant to be something fun, whether it's amazing or not, it's just meant to be fun. You bring your dad to it, you bring your kids to it, whatever. And that's not the conversation you end up having. It's about defending it from all this other stuff. So that there's a certain exhaustion that comes from it from that side too. So yeah, I get burnt out once in a while. I do a pretty good job, I think, at not letting it get to me too much, but there's some times where I'm just like, I gotta take a break. I'm hoping this weekend achieves that for me before we get thick into the summer movie season. No question, just love when you read my name. Hulk smash your mom. Still my favorite username. Do you think Infamous would be better as a show adaptation or a movie? It's always been my number one video game I've wanted a live adaptation for. I think it would be a pretty good movie. I don't know if there's enough meat on the bones to do a whole series on that one. I mean, it's a pretty simple concept, pretty fairly simple characters. So I think you could do a good solid 2-hour movie out of that and get the point across pretty well. Andy Muschietti and terrible CGI name a more iconic duo. No shit, man. And I don't know what it is. Like I that's the thing where I'm like, I've been let's see, what did he do? He did Mama, he did the 2 It movies, and now he did this. All 4 of them, I've thought the CGI has been shit. You know, Mama, you can forgive. It's really like a lower budget movie or whatever, and it's decent for what it is. It Chapter 1, that was my biggest issue with that movie, was just like, dude, everything else here is great, but the fucking CGI on this clown looks terrible, and you're using so much of it. It Chapter 2, I almost hate. Like, every time I've rewatched it twice, and I didn't like it at all in the theaters. I rewatched it for 31 on 31, and I liked it even less, and now it's the half of the story that I almost don't even wanna acknowledge anymore, and the CGI is even worse in that one. That fucking spider with the big giant clown, what is that? And now you get the Flash, and it's just like, dude, 200, $300 million movie, and it still looks like this? So, yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's just his taste, and that's the direction he's giving to these special effects artists. I don't know if it's just the same company that he's been working with for all 4 films, and he hasn't cut ties with them. I don't know if it's just bad luck. But when I walk into an Andy Muschietti film, I expect the CGI to look like ass now. And I'm worried about Brave and the Bold because that is not something I want to have come out of my mouth during a Batman movie. It's like, yeah, it was pretty good, but God, that CGI was terrible. So yeah, he needs to, whatever the issue is, it needs to be resolved because yeah, it's bad. Not a question, but I love your office. The blue lights give a John Carpenter's The Thing vibe for me. Yeah, I like the blue as well. I painted the most of the walls in here blue, and the lights of blue. It just kind of has a good little ambiance there. It's relaxing for me. Least favorite actor and actress? I don't think I can answer that question. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's not really an actor that I can think of to where like every time they show up, I'm just like, oh, I already hate it. And so I and how do you answer that? Like, is it just you least favorite because of their talent, least favorite because of things that they've said regarding their personal life, politics, whatever it is? Least favorite as far as actors or actresses that have done horrific things and gone to jail. Like, I mean, that's a loaded question. Thank you, Chris. Who wins, Freddy or Pennywise? Freddy wins all the time. Freddy always wins. And look, it's funny. I won't get into this too long, but it's always funny to me when you get these questions about like, Freddy versus Jason, Freddy versus Michael, Freddy versus Pinhead, like, who wins? And it's like if you're really objective about it, and this is not just because I'm a Freddy fanboy, but if you're really objective about it, Freddy is more powerful than all of them, and that's just the way that it is. It's not like a slight on the other characters, but like I've had people get all offended. They're like, "What the fuck you mean? Like Jason beat him in Freddy versus?" I'm like, "Well, no, technically he didn't." Because by the end of the film, they're both still alive. And number two, even if you do want to say that he got defeated in that movie. Jason had to have the help of about a dozen humans to take him down. If it was just Freddy and Jason, that whole segment in the middle of the film where he gets Jason to sleep, like, it's over. It's done. And so, yeah, when you have somebody that's a dream demon that has those types of powers, it's over with. And the one that I always see people, it's such a stupid argument. It's something that 4-year-olds argue over, but it always comes up. Where they're you got to take him out of the dream world, to make it fair. If it was in the real world, he'd lose. I'm like, okay, yeah. So you have to handicap all of his powers to make it fair. That should answer the question for you. Dude, Jason, I could totally kick his ass if you just tie his arms behind his back. Like, be real. So yeah, I would say Freddy. I don't care. It's whatever. It's always kind of a cute argument to me, but no, Freddy to me is the most powerful. Would you rather a Batfleck movie or Keaton Beyond? I mean, if you had asked me years ago, it would be Batfleck, no question. But Ben's clearly done with the character, and you could feel the exhaustion that he's had just having to come back, even with a couple of appearances that he's had. So I don't know. I think I would be more curious what they could do with the Batman Beyond at this point, where I've emotionally let go of Batfleck. We got the Pattinson movies. They got another one coming out with the Brave and the Bold. I don't know what that's going to look like. So emotionally, I've let go of Batfleck a while ago. And Keaton, though I don't have a lot of built-in nostalgia for him, there's something interesting about a Batman Beyond that I would be curious how they could do that. So I'd probably take Keaton Beyond. Now, if this was 4 or 5 years ago, I'd be like, Batfleck, what the fuck? Have you checked out the new Extraction movie? I have. I'm going to try my best to get time to review it. But I'll say this. Let me pull up my little letterbox thing here. So I did not see the first Extraction until the day before Extraction 2 dropped. Because while everybody loves to get all pissy about when Quentin Tarantino or any of those older directors say things about new movie making, when Quentin Tarantino says that movies that go directly to streaming, it's almost like they don't exist. It's because they don't. It's because they don't. Like, a lot of people that I know and trust said that the first Extraction was awesome, and I just never felt the obligation to check it out because it was just like, well, whatever. There's no rush. It's a streaming movie. Finally watched it. I liked it. And then I watched Extraction 2, and I thought that one was actually quite a bit better than the first film. And as of right now, Extraction 2 is either my number 2 or number 3 of the year. So I put out a tweet whenever I saw Extraction 2. I was like, I saw Michael Keaton's Batman and Harrison Ford pick up the fedora within the past week, and Extraction 2 is better than both of them. And I stand by that. So if you like old school action films, like, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's not something that's on this huge, narrative level of this deep introspective character with multi-layers. It's none of that. It's a very simple premise to get a fucking hulking dude who can kick the shit out of people for 2 hours. And if you're entertained by that, it's pretty fucking awesome. So yes, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Any plans to ever do a review on True Detective season 1? Probably not. I just don't think it would be relevant. I know there's some people that would like it, that would watch it, but yeah, that's a show that would have been nice to review when it came out. Nowadays, I don't think it would be much of a discussion. Did you watch Showtime series Californication? I did not. That was the one where David Duchovny was like just sex addicted or something, right? Something along those lines. But no, I never saw it. Never saw that one. Have you seen Once Were Warriors? Maybe review Once Were Warriors. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I don't even know what it is. I'm trying to remember what is Once Were Warriors? I've seen The Warriors. Does that count? Once Were Warriors, 1994. What the hell is this? New Zealand author. I've never heard of it. And the chances that I would review it, 0. It doesn't look like I've never heard of it, never heard anybody talk about it. It might be great, but it certainly wouldn't be a movie to create discussion around. That's for sure. Let's see. Video idea: take the building blocks of a movie you hate and rearrange them into something you love. Yeah. I've thought of doing something kind of like that, like how to fix blank. The problem is it's a tightrope to walk because I'm not a filmmaker. And so there's a certain amount of arrogance, even if it's a movie that universally people pretty much agree on is bad or a disappointment. There's a certain amount of arrogance that can come across if you're like, here's how to do it better with my zero experience. And so I've always I haven't pulled the trigger or anything like that because I had to figure out a way to make it not come across that way. But yes, there's been certain movies where I'm just like, yeah, this came out. I didn't like this about it. Here's how I would have done things. And I think there's a lot of people that would appreciate that. There's others that wouldn't. And so when I figure out a way to do it where I think I've balanced it out well, I might do something along those lines. What games are you playing at the moment? Have you seen the new Mortal Kombat 1 game coming out? Yeah, I saw. I'm not really a Mortal Kombat fan. I'm not a fighting game fan, put it that way. Mortal Kombat, if I'm going to play a fighting game, I'm playing that one. And I'm sure I'll check it out. I feel like they keep rebooting Mortal Kombat just endlessly. So to me, it's just kind of like another one, another reboot. But what games am I playing at the moment? I'm not really playing any. I go through these phases where I get like really gung ho about gaming for like 3 or 4 months, and then I go through like 3 months where I just don't even really want to play anything. And I'm in that funk right now, to where I played the living shit out of Resident Evil 4, a couple other games that I reviewed before that. Zelda came out. I was playing that nonstop with my wife and my kids. And then I didn't even finish Zelda yet. I just kind of got to a point where I went a couple of days without playing it, started getting more work focused on movies and everything. And then now I haven't really picked up a controller other than, a couple of times to play online with CP. I haven't really picked up a controller in a month. And so it's yeah, I'm kind of in a funk right now. There's what's coming out? There's a game or something coming out here in the next couple of months that looked interesting that'll probably get me back into it. I can't remember what the fuck it is. So probably in July, you'll see me kind of back on the Game Chamber channel, rolling along as always. Your comedic timing reminds me of Louis C.K. Well, that's a huge compliment. As long as you don't say my comedic timing in a hotel room with the door locked. But yeah, I appreciate it. How about some American Pie reviews? I almost did that. I almost started that last week, no, a couple of weeks ago. Whenever I reviewed Sex Drive, I had the Adam and Eve sponsorship, and I was trying to think of a movie to tie that in with. And I was originally going to review the movie Flamin' Hot because I saw that was coming out, and I was just like, oh, that might be an interesting story about how Flamin' Hot Cheetos came along, and I could kind of cheekily tie it in like Flamin' Hot into the Adam and Eve thing. But I watched the movie and I just thought it was so generic. And I was like, I don't even want to talk about this. And so then I was going to do American Pie. And I was like, but I'm not going to have the time to really do a review series. I'm still, dragging along the dragging ass on my John Carpenter review series. Plus, I got Indiana Jones I'm going to be starting up. And so I decided not to do that this month. And I chose Sex Drive instead. But the four main American Pie movies are ones that I would definitely want to review at some point soon. So before long, Dial of Destiny better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Discuss. Well, I'm gonna have to discuss it after I rewatch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because it's been so long since I watched it. I can't really tell you anything specific aside from the few things that everybody always talks about, like the monkey swinging scene, the CGI, the super special effects that just don't work in that movie. But narratively and specificity wise, I would have to watch it again. All I can tell you about Dial of Destiny is that it still has that modern movie making crutch to it, to where you have to have green screen, you have to have CGI, they have the de-aging CGI and stuff. So it still lacks that very real and practical feeling magic of the first three films. I just rewatched Raiders last night, and you still watch that. And even though there's some special effects in it, it still just has that classic appeal to it, to where you're like, this shit's real. This crypt is real. That arc is real. The stunts that they're doing is real. The fight scenes are all people punching actual people or pretending to. The gunshots, the blood and everything, which was pretty gnarly for a PG movie back in the day. That was before Temple of Doom brought the PG-13 rating. And Dial of Destiny just doesn't have that to it. It has a very fun tone. I think that a lot of people, if you just want to have a good, not amazing, but a good Indiana Jones adventure. We'll walk away satisfied enough with it, but it's nowhere near as offensive as some of the issues with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now, with that being said, I think that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is probably more memorable for some of the things that it does in such the negative side. With the people always talk about the monkey swing, and people always talk about the alien, people always talk about certain CGI segments, and just the fridge, the nuke the fridge thing. And Dial of Destiny doesn't really have moments that stand out like that, which in a way is good because they're all negative. All the things I just said are things that people tend to hate. But so it sits in that middle that we were talking about earlier, where it's like it's fine. It's good enough. It's fine. It's entertaining. It's satisfying. Some people might like it more than I do. Some people might dislike it more than I do, but it's not as impactful as the originals, not as offensive as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but it also, because of that, because it sits in that middle, it's also not quite as standout and memorable. So, where would 72 Seasons place in your Metallica album ranking? If not dead last, one above it. Not a fan of the album at all. Not a fan of it at all. Well, yeah, it's not dead last. It's better than Saint Anger. So no matter what, it's either just above Saint Anger, maybe one above that, and I don't know what would take its place. But I tried listening to the album probably 4 times, and it just doesn't work for me. It just feels like a jam session. It's got moments, it's got elements, it's got certain beats here and there that I like, but it feels artificial to me. It feels like some people got together and said, let's make some stuff that sounds Metallica-ish, but it just doesn't have a flow to it. It doesn't really have, like, James, his singing doesn't really feel like it's as dynamic as it normally is. It feels more old school, where it's just kind of talking. Some people might like that. I don't. Even the songs, just the structure of them and the vibe of them feel very redundant of each other. So yeah, it sucks. I was really looking forward to that album. I almost went to a listening party at midnight. I'm kind of glad I didn't, but it I don't like it at all. I don't know what else I could say about it. I'm not a fan. Who would you rather see make a Bond movie, Tarantino or Nolan? Nolan. I don't think Tarantino's style would fit with a Bond movie whatsoever. So yeah, that's an easy one for me. Nolan, I think, could do a pretty fucking awesome job with a Bond movie. Hey, Cody, keep doing what you're doing. Which Batman villain do you want to see the most in the Batman 2, and who do you want to see play them? I'm still really intrigued with the possibility of a more grounded take on Mr. Freeze. And I saw a fan casting of Mr. Freeze that was Giancarlo Esposito, and I was like, yes, I want that. So there's an easy one for you. But other villains I'd like to see, being that this is a grounded Batman, so you can't get some of the more wild ones out there, even though they're rumored to be doing Clayface somehow. Hush is one that I think would fit into this universe pretty well, that we haven't seen a version of. Court of Owls, things along those lines, something different. I don't need another Two-Face. I don't need another Catwoman, even though we have one. I don't need another Riddler and things like that. We've got Catwoman, we've got Riddler already. So it's like, okay, we stuck to the 4 or 5 that we've done so many times. Now let's branch off and do some of the ones that we have not seen in live action yet. Hey, Cody, love your content and perspectives, man. Do you think there's anything YouTube or the community itself can do about the alt-right grifting channels that stain film discourse with buzzwords like woke or groomer? Ignore them. Ignore them. Don't even fucking acknowledge them. That's the only way that they go away. Every single one of those people barely even believes in the shit that they're spewing. But why do they continue to do it? Why do they continue to make videos off of it? Why do they continue to make the big thumbnails and the headlines and have the most predictable response to every single piece of media that comes out? Because people click it. Because that's how they get their money. Because there's a certain amount of people out there that want to just bathe and marinate in hate and anger. So they click on videos that they think is going to fuel whatever they're pissed off about, and that's all they're interested in. That's the only conversation and discourse that they're interested in. Anybody else, you're irrelevant, you're an idiot, you don't understand the truth, blah, 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 blah. So I had somebody walk up and quite literally just like cut. I was talking with Coy Jandro about the thing, quite literally just walked between us and cut off the conversation pretty rudely, and was just like, looked me dead in the eye, like, what do we do about these fucking grifter channels? What do we do about this stuff? And apparently he did that to everybody else in the panel. And I was just like, don't acknowledge them. The fact that you're so bothered about it that you walked up and forced the conversation onto me, that's part of the problem. I ignore them. I don't know any of these people. I don't want to know any of these people. I don't acknowledge them. I don't follow them on Twitter. I don't respond to them. I don't comment on their shit. I click the little X every time something's recommended. I just act like they don't fucking exist. And if more people would do that, they would go away because they wouldn't have the financial backing to do what they do. They wouldn't have the financial reward of continuing to do what they do. And so, like I said, most of those people, I mean, there might be some whack jobs out there that genuinely believe all that bullshit, but most of them out there, they are maybe 30% as passionate on the stuff that they're talking about as it seems, but they do it because they're playing to that audience. They're throwing chum into the water to keep the money coming. So that's how you do it. Any update on the debrief? We're hoping for the last week of July or June, excuse me. We're hoping for the last week of June. But it's very difficult to get all four of us on the same page. When I'm going on vacation, CP is going to be moving before long. Brian is 5-6 hours ahead of all of us. Sean is very busy. And so, yeah, we're trying for the last week of June. We will do one for sure. It's not going to get missed, but just it's going to be about when it happens. Do you plan to continue your What's in the Inbox podcast? Listen to it for the first time not that long ago. Really enjoyed it. Yes, I have an episode that I have a collection of emails sitting to be read. I just haven't had the time to do it. So probably sometime early July, I'll get the next episode out. But yes. Thoughts on you making a barbecue channel? Well, if I do, in fact, make a cooking channel, which is a very solid possibility, it won't be strictly barbecue, but it'll be an element of it. But yes, probably 75% chance that I create one of those before the end of this year. I don't want to say when, because again, I'm very busy just doing the 2 channels that I currently have. I don't want to overburden myself. I shoot, edit, and do all this shit myself. So I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. No pun intended. But yes, I have a pellet smoker. I have a flat top griddle. I have a offset smoker. All of those where I would want to do a channel cooking on all 3 of those and even doing stuff inside. So yes, I will do it for sure. 100% it'll happen at some point. Pretty sizable chance it'll happen by the end of this year. Do you ever think you'll do a tier list with Stephen King movies? Are you a fan other than It and Pet Sematary? I like the idea of it, but the problem is there is a lot of them that I haven't seen, and most of them are not known to be very good. So there's a lot of straight to DVD ones. There's a lot of adaptations that people have been like, these are horrendous. And so there would be a lot of work involved, a lot of hours involved just on the watching side to get one video done. So I like the idea, and maybe at some point I'll do it. But that's the only obstacle there is like, I mean, we'll say conservatively, I have 10 movies to watch, and it's more than that. Well, that's on the conservative side, 20 hours of just the watching before I get to record and editing for one video. And will the video be worth all of that aside from just the fun of doing it? I don't know. That's always the problem when it becomes your full-time job. You got to prioritize sometimes the things that you know are going to be worth the time. Now, sometimes I still just do videos I want to do. I don't care if it succeeds or not because I still want to have fun with this. But there's certain times where like a lot of people will be like, why don't you do a Martin Scorsese ranking? And I'm like, that's like 100 hours of shit because there's so many movies I got to watch. So yeah, that's the only issue with that, but I do like the idea. Looking forward to Killers of the Flower Moon. Hey, speaking of Scorsese, I feel like it would be The Irishman good, but way too long. Looking forward to Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan. Yeah, I don't know. We're in that weird era of Scorsese, especially to where a lot of the movies that he's making are they just feel really overly indulgent. Like, I love things like Goodfellas and Taxi Driver and Cape Fear. I mean, there's a ton of movies I could list by Scorsese that I love, that all of us love. But nowadays, the past handful of movies, everything since The Departed pretty much have just felt, unless I'm missing one or two of them, have felt like 3-hour artistic epic to get an Oscar. And those just aren't really my types of movies. Now, I know Flowers of the Killer Moon has like a serial killer or murder mystery aspect to it. So maybe if I watch the trailer, it'll really feel like my type of thing. But yeah, the assumption that you're making about it being really long, I already have that because it doesn't go to like Apple or some shit. Like his movies aren't really made for the theatrical experience anymore. It's like, okay, well, the only people they're going to pay for me to do a 4-hour movie is Netflix. So I guess I'll go there. So yeah, I don't know. And Oppenheimer, I'm curious about it. It's not really a story that I'm interested in. I really don't care about the creation of the nuclear bomb, but it's Nolan, so I already have my ticket bought, and I hope it's going to be good. But that's another one where I'm expecting it's at least going to be 3 hours long. Huh. 3-hour movies. It's like every other week now. Just wondering, have you heard of Avenged Sevenfold's newest album, You're the Goat? I appreciate it, man. No, I haven't. I listened to their single that they released. I thought it was horrible. I didn't like it at all. And all of the buzz that I've heard off of their new album is that it's really weird and experimental and strange and along the lines of that single. So I honestly haven't given it a chance yet. They're not a band that I love anyway. Like most of the albums that I love by Avenged Sevenfold are the ones that the fans hate. Like I love their self-titled album and I love Hail to the King. And most of the time when I read rankings and stuff, people are really down on those. So I'm not your typical Avenged Sevenfold fan. Name 3 things you like about Freddy's Dead. I'm struggling for one. The line with the map about the map says we're fucked is entertaining in and of itself, like for a meme moment. Um, that's it, man. I don't have 3 things. I hate that fucking movie. I hate it. There's I'd have to lie to give you 3. Sorry. I try my best to find the positives in everything. There's a lot of movies that I watch that I genuinely don't care for much, but I always try to give a few things. I can't do it with that movie. I can't. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Kavan Day, thoughts on Barry season 4? Spoiler, wasn't happy with the time jump, and would you watch Succession? Okay, spoiler warning for Barry because it's hard to discuss the final season without discussing the final season. So I first started watching Barry last year, last August, September, sometime around there. People have been telling me about Barry, and I've had my eye on it for a while, and it sounded like it was going to be up my alley. I was pretty positive I was going to like it whenever I finally watched it, but there's so much to watch nowadays. I have to be prepared to start a new show. So I started Barry, loved it immediately, binged through the first 3 seasons pretty quickly. Went to Texas to do Fantastic Fest with Uncle Sean, introduced him and his wife to it, watched through the first 1.5 seasons a second time while I was there. So I was very excited for season 4. And I waited for season 4 to be completely done before I even started it because that's a very quick show to binge. 30-minute episodes, and there's only 8 episodes a season. So you're talking about 4 hours, you're done. And I didn't want to wait week to week because I didn't watch the first 3 seasons that way. So I binged the entire 4th season the day after it was completed. And it's my least favorite season of the 4. I can tell you that pretty confidently. But it was still a good season, but it's very conflicted because on one hand, I feel like a lot of the things that they did make perfect sense for the show. And in certain ways, it does kind of bring things full circle with the whole point of the show from the beginning. At the same time, I feel like it's also not the most satisfying final season, final episode, final resolutions to these characters, even if they make sense. And so, yeah, I was enjoying the show, but it felt like it was taking a while to get going in season 4 when it was just him in prison. And I figured once it exploded, it was going to be like mile a minute to the end. So I was patient with it, but until you got to that episode where there's all those people that are like interviewing or talking to Barry, and he's inside the prison and he's looking at the guy and he's like, that guy's here to kill me. And then you have that big shootout. Like that was the moment the season really got started for me, where I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm here for. Finally, we're moving. And then immediately after that, it's time jump. And I didn't like the time jump at all. First of all, it was confusing to me because it was so sudden. I was like, is this a dream? And it took like an entire episode and a half for me to realize, like, oh no, this is actually a time jump. We're not in Barry's head of what he's projected or what his future with Sally could be. That's what I was assuming it was. And it was so jarring. And so by the time I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is actually how we're going to end the show, there was a legit time jump and this is all real. Weird. While all that's going on, there's 2 or 3 different sequences with Sally that are totally fantastical that felt like a dream state, which is what kept me from completely believing that it was real, that kind of go unanswered. You know, that she has this dream where this truck is running into their house and the house is tipping over and shit, and it just that kind of goes nowhere, never goes explained. There's a point where it's almost like it was embodying paranoia with her, I guess, but it was just so fantastical that it wasn't subtle enough for me. There was some other moment where she walked up to a police officer trying to turn herself in, and it doesn't go the way that it should. And then as far as how the show actually wraps up, which I'll try not to say specifically, but it ends at a point to where the person that should be punished isn't, and the person that doesn't necessarily deserve to be punished is deeply punished. And I understand what they're going for as far as the commentary on how we consume media and stories, and narratives can be spun and heroes can quite literally just be created narratively and people will just believe it because it's flashy and it's entertaining. It's not necessarily the truth, and the glamorization of real life stories when they make it into media and like I understand everything that they're going for, but I didn't feel like it was the most satisfying end to those 2 characters, because on one hand, it never really feels like the one character actually had that moment of growth and realization and acknowledgement of the past 4 seasons of events that they have quite literally been in denial of the entire show and kind of excusing. Never really got that moment. And then on the other hand, you have a character that has quite literally been tortured in many ways through the events of the show. Isn't necessarily the best guy. He's certainly done things that are not commendable and has spun things to his own gain and whatever. And he has his flaws. But that guy goes down in not a blaze of glory, like a blaze of shame. And it's kind of like, so what's the message here that we're trying to convey with those 2 characters' fates? So yeah, I don't know. It's not a final season or a finale that leaves me frustrated and angry like so many, where it's just like, well, that was a great show that they just couldn't stick the landing. It's not quite that level. It's not that they didn't stick the landing. It's just the way that they stuck the landing wasn't completely satisfying for me, while making sense in a lot of ways. So yeah, very complicated with that last season. All right. What do you make so many movies struggling at the box office? Outside of Mario and Guardians of the Galaxy, there has not been any successes. Did streaming change our viewing habits that significantly? Yeah. I mean, depending on the movie, there's other reasons, but yeah, they absolutely shot themselves in a foot for a bit. That's probably going to take a while for them to get back out of, or maybe we'll never get back out of it. When COVID hit and all the movie studios were like, this is our time to just launch all of our streaming services and just skip the theaters entirely. And so you have a lot of people that now are conditioned to just wait. Because back in the day, back in my day, back in the day, I remember going to see movies with my dad, and it'd be like a fucking year before that bitch came out on VHS. Like Jumanji was one, or maybe it was Jingle All the Way. There was one of those 2 where I remember we loved it, and it was like a year before you could watch it again. And so there used to be this huge, this huge focus on the necessity of seeing it while it's in theaters. Otherwise, you got a hell of a weight on your hands. and wanting to be a part of the conversation, that water cooler conversation. Like, you had The Flash that comes out. If that movie came out when I was a kid, that's all people would be talking about for the next 2 weeks is The Flash. And if you weren't there, if you didn't get to see it, then you're a loser because you don't understand anything we're talking about. So there used to be this necessity to go and see it as soon as possible and go and see it before it leaves theaters because you don't know when you're going to be able to see it again. And now that's completely gone because most new releases within a month, less, it's on VOD. I mean, did Mario even wait a month? I don't even know. But Mario, I think, is the most successful movie of the year so far, if I'm not mistaken. And that was on VOD pretty damn quick. You got Disney Plus with Pixar. That especially. You got parents with 3-4 kids that's like, okay, do I go out and I spend 100 something bucks to take all these kids out to the movies and get everybody popcorn and slushies and candy and everything? Or I can just wait 2 weeks and it'll be on Disney Plus and they can sit their ass at home and eat the shit that I've already paid for. Most parents are going to choose that. And so, yeah, there's absolutely been a shift with the way that streaming and the way that the release window from theater to home video has shrunk significantly. That has affected most movies. Certain movies have survived, like the ones you listed. You know, last year you had like Top Gun Maverick, and that's partially because Tom Cruise and them were like, you are not putting this on Paramount Plus day and date. You are not putting this on Paramount Plus within the first month. Let this bitch live in theaters the way it's meant to be. And they reaped the benefits of that. It also helped that it was a tremendous movie that a lot of people loved and wanted to see multiple times and were talking about and recommending. So there's other elements there, you know, and then on the negative side, you have movies like Flash that has so many things working against it to where it's, you know, however many people are upset about Ezra Miller and or WB's lack of acknowledgement of Ezra Miller. You have the DC reboot on the cusp. You have just the DC track record here recently, or overall, really, that shies people away. I mean, there's like 7 different factors working against that one. But if we're talking specifically, has streaming changed things? Yeah, it has. It has. And I see it in in a lot of people that don't do what I do, that don't have the obligation to go check out the movies when they're new. There's a ton of times, like my dad, where he used to love going to the movies, used to go all the time. And I bring up movies to him and he's like, I'll see it eventually, or I won't, whatever. And that's kind of the mentality we have now. There's so much shit out, so much brand new movies, streaming shows, TV series. There's so much stuff out there to watch that big movies aren't always the priority anymore. It would be fun to meet and greet you at a convention. So I wanted to ask if you were planning a Comic-Con type of event. Thanks. Not yet, no. I mean, we did MegaCon. I won't get too much into the specifics on. Hang on, sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, that was delivery driver. There were certain goals that we had with our appearance at MegaCon and having multiple YouTubers in and making it more of a focus that we were hoping was going to turn into a more frequent convention type thing. And without going into detail, that doesn't seem like that has caught on the way that we hoped that it would. Maybe it will in the future. So for me specifically, as far as appearances, like me on stage talking or me off to the side at a table meeting everybody, you're probably not going to see me at something like that again until the next MegaCon, unless there's an opportunity that pops up that I'm not aware of. As far as just showing up at a con, I do have interest in checking out more horror cons because I've never been to one, but it just hasn't really haven't had the opportunity yet. Like we had Spooky Empire, but it was the same exact day and weekend that we had Rockville, so I couldn't go to that one. There's a couple that go to Atlanta, so you'll probably have a horror con that I go to just as a consumer in the near future. But as far as me being like a part of a con, it'll be the next MegaCon most likely. Hope you're well. I'm doing pretty good. Just a little tired. Thoughts on Barbarian not getting a Blu-ray release? As a physical media advocate, it worries me this will become the norm. At some point, it will. It sucks because Barbarian was in my top 5 of last year. I'd love to have a Blu-ray of it, and it doesn't make sense to me to just not do a release. But yeah, that's part of the shift with the streaming services and everything. You have studios that are trying to make it to where you have to have their streaming services to experience their movies. And that's part of the casualty of that is they don't want you to have the option of buying it, have it on the shelf anytime you want to watch it. They want you to subscribe, and that's the way you have to see it. So yeah, it sucks. Barbarian's the most significant new release that I have seen in recent memory that didn't get a release at all. It might be the only one, and it annoys the piss out of me. But yeah, when it will become the norm, if it does, I don't know. Fubar got renewed. Will you watch season 2? Yeah, I saw that. I don't understand Netflix. Not to say that I'm speaking for everybody, because there are some people, a good amount of people that enjoyed that show. But most of the conversation that I saw surrounding it was just like, it's whatever, or it was bad. You know, there was people that the casual fans that enjoyed it for what it was. But Netflix is weird because it seems like there's really popular shows that seemingly most people love that get axed consistently on that network, on that streaming service. They have theater quality movies like Extraction 2 that they still are doing no effort whatsoever to do like a theatrical run with. That baffles me, while the other streaming services are doing exactly that. And then shows like Fubar that have not been reviewed well, and a lot of people that I know that have seen it aren't that high on it, gets renewed immediately. Will I watch season 2? I don't know. I mean, I didn't hate Fubar. It was fine. It was watchable enough, but it was very disappointing. And so I honestly don't know. It depends on how busy I am and how bored I am, whether I will watch season 2. If people tell me like it's so much better, then I'll absolutely watch it. But if it's along the same lines or worse, then I might spend my time elsewhere. For me, it's the cost and travel of going to the movies. It's expensive and inflation is high. So you pick and choose looking forward to Spider-Man 2. That's a big part of it as well. Where things are more expensive now. And so people are more selective with how they spend their money. And so it's got to be a huge tentpole movie that people are really excited about, or it's got to be a movie that everybody is raving about. And it's just this huge event thing like Maverick for theaters to feel like they always did, where you get a movie that's just raking in money. Just wanted to say how much I appreciate your horror reviews. Wrong Turn 6 gets me every time. Sorry you had to sit through that. yeah, that's a movie. That's a movie. Would you ever redo older reviews like Friday the 13th? Eventually I will. I'm not really in the business of revisiting reviews because my thoughts don't really change very often. If they do, not enough to merit an entire new review. However, I do have review series and reviews from years past that just the quality level of my video and my editing and everything has changed significantly. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, especially, was the first review series I ever did, and those are rough looking compared to the stuff I do now. So there's a motivation for me to kind of update it for that reason. So um there's a real possibility that I'll do some of those big review series like again when there's something new to talk about. So like if we get a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie coming about, I'll probably re-review all the films. Same with Friday the 13th. Maybe. All right. We got 47. Let's see. I'm gonna probably try to get through these a little quicker because I only wanted to do 2 hours, and it might take me another hour just to get through these next 47. My wife just called me, so she's on the way home, and we still got some packing to do. So I'm gonna try to get these a little quicker. Just give you a heads up, I'll send you a copy of Shout Factory's Creep Show for Off the Shelves. Be on the lookout for it. All right, cool. Thanks, man. I haven't seen that one, so that's good. Would your collection number ever get to such a large number to a stage where you would stop collecting? I know a guy with 9,000 movies. I mean, I'm close to that point now. I don't have enough room. So I've had to move some of my doubles up into the attic. I've bought less. And so yeah, when it comes to a point where those shelves are full and I have nowhere else to put Blu-rays, then I'm kind of screwed because I can't put more shelves in here. Otherwise, I'm eating into my recording space. So yes, for space reasons alone, I'll have to eventually come to a point where I just can't buy anymore. Original Cabin Fever is one of the best experiences in a theater I've ever had. So bad it's amazing. Have you ever seen it? I have. It's decent. I like the concept of it. I think that Eli Roth's humor is weird. I meant least favorite actor, actress is in talent. Again, though, I don't. I really. Carrie Elways is one that I've never really cared for very much. I don't hate the guy, but like when aside from like maybe Liar Liar when he shows up, I feel like he kind of brings the quality down a bit. But that's a very unpassionate answer. They're the gun to my head answer. Why do you think people don't respect Chucky? Um, I don't know. I mean, there's horror fans that don't respect Chucky because they feel like because it's a doll that I guess it's lesser than whatever they like. Like it's not as mature, not as prestigious as a fucking guy that walks around in a white mask and doesn't talk. But yeah, like, I don't know. There people that don't respect horror in general don't respect Chucky. But I don't imagine they would respect Freddy or anybody else either. I think just inherently the concept of it's probably a little sillier, a little more a little less serious, I guess. That some people have that as a hurdle, but I don't know. Thoughts on the Jackass movies? They're funny. They're gross, but they're not movies that I would ever rewatch. Thoughts on the Magic Mike movies? The first film is actually a lot better than you would think it is. It's actually got a pretty good story, and it's it's made well. It's not you look at Magic Mike and you're like, oh, that's a trash movie about getting guys half naked or whatever, so the girls go nuts. And that's exactly what the second film was. I didn't see the third film, but the first one it has that element, but it actually has a good story and it has some good character stuff going along. So yeah, the first one's actually pretty decent. Second one, I didn't enjoy it all, but I'm not the target audience for that. I'm all for it. Equal opportunity. You can go see some swinging dicks, and I'll go see my version of that in horror movies every couple of weeks. What's the most what the fuck did I just watch movie you've ever seen? Um, the Apple was pretty ridiculous. It was a way early on in my channel when I first started Patreon. It was a mutual Patreon of me and Chris Durbin from Durbania that he had us both watch The Apple, and that was a movie that was just perplexing to watch in many different ways. There's others, but that's the first thing that come to my mind. That was a big like, what the fuck is this? I farted. Good for you. Thank you. Thank you. Just bought the new John Wick movie. I haven't heard anybody talking about Scott Adkins in this movie besides Donnie Yen, Bill Skarsgård, and Mr. Nobody. Scott Adkins, is that the guy that plays the big Russian? Yeah, I believe that's him. Yeah, it is. To be honest with you, I don't know who Scott Adkins is. So I didn't mention it because I didn't know who he was. I heard some people after I saw the movie saying, "Oh, and the guy that plays the big Russian is this guy," but I didn't know. I've never seen any of his movies that I know of, so that's probably why. When will you finish Carpenter and George A. Romero's respected? Oh shit, I didn't even realize that I was still dragging Romero. I don't know with that one. I got like what 2 movies to review, and that one's done. Carpenter. I had plans to do Big Trouble in Little China and Memoirs of an Invisible Man this week, but then Indiana Jones, I got the invite for that press screen, and that shifted all of my plans for the last 2 weeks. So I keep putting it on the calendar, and then new releases completely shove it out of the way. So now that we're in summer movie season, it's extremely difficult, but I do want to get to Big Trouble in Little China. I've been trying to get to Big Trouble in Little China for 3 months now, but I just haven't had the time. So before long, I haven't forgot about it. As far as Romero, though, I don't know. Been a sub since 18. Love what you do. Thoughts on Ellie getting recast for Last of Us Season 2? Did they announce that? I don't think they did. I don't imagine they're going to do that because there's going to be enough of a wait, and they love Bella enough that I don't think it's going to even be on the table. There's a part of that might be difficult, and I'm going to hold my judgment until I see it because there's a significant age difference between Ellie in the first game and the second game. And I don't know. I know that Bella Ramsey is older than what she's portraying in the first season. So maybe they could very easily just dress her different and make her look so much older and more mature. But I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. That's the complicated thing. That was one of the things that I was curious about when I reviewed the season one. Was like, she's amazing as um Ellie, but is she going to work for the story that is much more mature in season two? I don't know. Sorry if you already answered this. What are your thoughts on the Extraction movies? I liked the first one quite a bit. It was cool, and the second one I thought was even better. I don't know if that's just me riding the high. I'm very easily put onto like a bit of a high when it comes to those classic violent kick-ass action movies. So maybe it won't end up in my top 3 of the year by the time the year ends, but as of right now, it's in my top 2 or top 3. I really enjoyed it. Any chance to bring back the pitch wars, maybe as a tournament where you and somebody pitch and the viewers patron get to vote on a winner? Well, there was a version of that I was trying to bring back last year, where I was really gearing it up and I was trying to figure out how to make it a live stream show. And it was going to be something to where me and Durbin were going to kick it off because we did the first episode way back when I first did it. And then two things happened. One, Chris got a job with The Chosen and kind of stopped doing YouTube and went pursue that full-time job. So he doesn't really do YouTube anymore. So that kind of had to make me go back to the drawing board about what I was going to be able to do. And two, there was like 2 or 3 other channels around the time that I was planning and advertising I was going to relaunch Pitch Wars that kind of did their own version of Pitch Wars. And so I kind of got turned off of the idea because it just kind of felt like, okay, well, now it looks like I'm following all of them. And so those two kind of killed my interest in it for the time being. It's still the first Pitch Wars is still one of my favorite videos I've ever done. And I still love the idea. Still think it has a lot of promise and potential to be fun. But yeah, no current plans to bring it back. But it came close. Came close last year. Can you sing No Surrender that fits your voice? No Surrender by who? Judas Priest? Is that No Surrender, Judas Priest? Cody, there's a horror con in OKC that comes every August. Would be awesome if you'd come one time for a meet and greet. What is OKC? Is that Oklahoma? Oklahoma City, maybe. That's a bit far. I'm talking like 4-hour drive tops, but yeah, maybe one day. R.I.P. Rave Stevenson. Absolutely. Absolutely. That dude was young. Are you positive or skeptical about the future of the DC cinematic universe? Thanks always for the great content. I'm optimistic about it. What I'm not optimistic about is whether or not people are going to allow it to go through its growing pains. Because look, here's the reality of it. People, whether it's fair or not, have a stigma against DC films. Some of it is earned because they've had a very spotty track record with their quality and with their direction and constantly changing what the fuck they're doing. And so out of confusion, a lot of people are just like, fuck it, I don't care. And I understand that. Some people just don't like their movies as much and they don't care, and that's fine. I understand that. But you have this narrative now, and so again, some of it is earned to where you have like the last 4 or 5 movies from DC have all seriously underperformed. You had Birds of Prey that didn't do very much. You had the Suicide Squad, which had a lot stacked against it because it was COVID. They did the day and date bullshit, so they kind of killed it. But that didn't do very well financially, even though a lot of people liked it. You had Black Adam that did okay. I think that maybe they broke even. You had Suicide or Shazam 2 that was an absolute bomb. Now you have The Flash, which is highly underperforming. And so you've got like a 5-6 movie track record now, which is like those movies fail. And so a lot of people are not going to go see it, or they're going to wait, or unless the movie just has overwhelmingly huge praise. And so let's say, for example, that Superman Legacy, which is supposed to come out 2025, that is James Gunn's Superman movie. That is the first official film that is going to set off this new James Gunn, Peter Safran ran DC universe. Let's say, for example, that movie is amazing. And let's say the next 2 movies after that are really good. I would still expect that the first couple of movies, if not the first 3 to 4 movies that come out in this new DC universe, to not perform outstanding financially, regardless of how good they are, just because of the stigma and because of the track record and because of the expectations that general movie-going audiences and even some of us not so general but more seasoned movie audiences expect from them. And I think they know that realistically. I think they know that, hey, even if we knock this out of the park, it's going to be a couple of years of movies before we really start to reap the benefits of it. And we kind of wash the taste out of everybody's mouth. And now they start to expect good stuff from us and come out for our stuff more. But I'm concerned whether or not they're actually going to allow those growing pains to happen, or if they're going to get cold feet and they're going to get reactionary like the WB of the past did when Man of Steel did good, not outstanding. Batman v Superman comes out and is disappointing because they fucked with it. But nonetheless, it doesn't make what they expect a Batman and Superman movie to make. And so they freak out and they start just tinkering with everything and changing directions and changing plans and recasting and throwing out directors. So they're going to have to dig their feet in the sand and eat shit for a little while. And I'm just worried of whether or not they're going to allow that to happen. Time will tell. Big fan of your work. Do you like the movie 8mm with Nick Cage? I do. I would say it's underrated as well. It's pretty, it's gnarly. It's definitely not a feel-good movie, but yeah, it's good. Most underrated character in a TV show? Oh, dude, I don't know. Most underrated character in a TV show. Maybe Tommy Gavin from Rescue Me. Rescue Me was a really successful and very praised show for quite a while there, but you never really hear people bring it up or his character. You know, hear people talk about the Shield, Nip Tuck, things of that era, but you don't really hear anything about Dennis Leary. What about the new Strangers reboot? No interest. I don't like the first Strangers at all. I'm one of the people that I genuinely don't think that's a good movie, and I don't understand the fandom behind it. Second film was fine, but even that one, I was like, I felt it was way overblown by slasher fans. So new reboot, I don't care. Maybe it'll be good, but I don't care. Thank you. Cody, are you a fan of the series The Blacklist? If you are, what are your quick thoughts on the show? I've never seen it, man. I know the basic premise of it, James Spader, but I've never seen it, so I have no opinion to give you. I'm sorry. What do you make of all the movies struggling at the box office outside of Mario? Didn't I answer that? I answered that one. Was that a double one? Sorry, Ingrid. But yeah, I answered that one. Casper Super Sticker, thank you. What is the future for physical media? I don't expect physical media to go away completely for a very long time if it ever does. I mean, there was a lot of people that, like when vinyl went away, nobody ever expected vinyl to come back. And now vinyl is stronger than CDs, I think, in a certain way. And so I don't expect Blu-rays or 4Ks to go away, some form of physical media. I don't think that. I don't expect a future where that's just non-existent. But you will see certain studios slowly start to be more selective about the movies that they put out in physical media. And I don't know what that's going to look like exactly. Big fan. Are you okay with an account dedicated to tweeting out of context clips from your channel? I recently started one, Cody Leach, out of context. I mean, the fact that you're a fan makes me a little easier on it because I don't think you're going to be taking clips out of context for negative reasons, but in general, I don't care much for the idea. I'd have to see it, to be honest with you. But like Sean Chandler had one that was that exact title, Sean Chandler out of context, but it was all things that he said that were then spun to be way more negative than it was intended, or to be completely different than what was intended. It was basically just a Sean Chandler bash account where they would take something that he said and be like, this is what he means. And it was never that. So in general, that makes me a little nervous. But the fact that you're like, hey, I'm a fan, do you mind? I'm assuming that's not what you're doing. But I mean, I can't stop anybody. I mean, my shit's public, so people can do whatever the hell they want with it, really. When is the next For Better or Worst episode? For Better or Cursed, we just watched Weekend at Bernie's a couple of days ago. We won't record it until for certain after we get back from vacation. So I'd say first week of July. First week of July, you'll have that one. And we'll get to a point where we're more regular with those uploads. Things have just been very busy with me and the wife. So the last 2 episodes have been slow trickle out. We never get to see you live. We watch our videos at work on a big 90-inch screen that we are supposed to use for webinars. This is great. Oh, wow. Hello, everybody. 90-inch screen, Cody, coming at you. That's pretty cool. I want to see a picture of what that looks like. But yeah, I'll try to do more live streams. Again, it's just with the risk of being a broken record, it's been very busy. Thank you, Bryant. What was your opinion of Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy 3? One of my favorite depictions of any Marvel character. Very emotional. Very emotional. I mean, I've always loved that character, but yeah, very emotional. And I think that the way that they characterize him and the story that they give him actually makes his placement in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 a lot more understandable and forgivable. Because as much as I loved his character, a lot of the things that he did in 2 didn't work for me, to where he's just like, he steals these batteries just because and sets these huge villains against the Guardians of the Galaxy and kicks all these events. And it's just like, dude, you suck. Why did you do that? But this one, it kind of makes sense of even the moments of Rocket that I haven't liked. So yeah, I was a big fan. Since Metal Gear Solid 1 is your favorite video game of all time, what are your thoughts on Metal Gear Solid as a franchise? Looking forward to Delta. I am looking forward to Delta. I'm a little bit perplexed at why they're starting with 3. And my assumption is that they're going to go in chronological order, which is cool. And I'm fine with that. But I wish they would just say that. Maybe they don't want to promise other reboots in case this one fails. And I get that as well. But it's mostly because Konami also is doing Silent Hill 2 before they do Silent Hill 1. And so with those 2 announcements back to back, it's like, okay, so you guys just going to do the most popular one and that's it? Because fuck that. Metal Gear Solid 1 desperately needs a remake. Metal Gear Solid 3 still plays fine. And so that's my only frustration with it, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. But yeah, what are my thoughts on the Metal Gear Solid as a franchise? Complicated, because on one hand, I adore the franchise so much, and it's one of my favorites. And at the same time, there's things about it that I've never liked. I've always thought that it was too wordy and too much like the Konami or the Kojima stuff is its best aspect and its worst aspect, because there's a certain of genius to how weird and crazy his ideas are. And then there's a certain amount of it that's just too much. And all of the Metal Gear Solid mainline games have different mixes of that, to where even the first Metal Gear Solid, I've played that game probably 30, 40 times. It's my number 1 game of all time. And there are still a lot of the cutscenes that I still have not watched, because there's a lot of those parts of the game where you have in-game cutscene with those characters, and then you have like real life war footage and all of this espionage dialogue and historical dialogue. And as a kid, I couldn't stand that stuff. I was always skipping through it, and I'm not one to skip cutscenes. So I actually would want to see remakes of these games to where they kind of tone that down a bit, make it a little bit more mainstream. But yeah, so I love the series. I love Metal Gear Solid 1. I love Metal Gear Solid 3. 2, there's a lot about it that I love, but I've always hated the fact that you don't get to play as Snake, and that will never change. Metal Gear Solid 4, I liked a lot when it first came out, despite not liking the micro or the gun marketplace, whatever the fuck it was called, where you could just buy any gun at any time. I didn't like that aspect to it. I didn't like some of the stealth aspects that they brought in there, and some things about it were weird, but narratively, I thought it was a great end of the series. Tried to replay it, couldn't get into it whatsoever. Metal Gear Solid 5, gameplay wise, I think is arguably the best of the entire franchise. It is fucking tight and fun as far as the gameplay. Story wise, absolute dog shit. So yeah, it's a very weird journey you go on with those games. Cody, my brother, and I watch from Ghana. Much love. Hey, some love from Ghana. Appreciate that. I'm an artist that's pretty damn good and I think fits your vibe. Would you be interested in a collaboration for apparel or anything? Send me a DM on either Instagram or Twitter or something like that. Probably Instagram's the easiest. Send me a DM on Instagram and we'll go from there. I don't know or not. My merch stuff is in a desperate need of some kind of a a reboot, not because of the designs, because Woody, the guy that does all my designs, I love all his stuff. It's just that the stores that are available for us content creators are kind of shitty. So we'll talk from there. No promises, but yeah, that's a private conversation. I know Star Wars has been done to death, but I'd love to see a horror film set in that universe. Do you think an adaptation of Darth Plagueis could work? I know nothing about Darth Plagueis, and to be honest with you, I have no interest in Star Wars anymore. I totally understand people that have just been burnt by Disney Star Wars, but because I'm one of them, I used to think I was a massive Star Wars fan until I joined the internet and realized that I was a rookie at best. But yeah, the sequel trilogy just and a couple of their shows have just killed my interest. Where I don't. First of all, I don't have faith in anything that they announce because they've canceled more shit than they've actually followed through with. But quality wise, it has not been good. And so yeah, I just don't care. So I understand people that have been burned by Star Wars. What I don't understand is taking your frustration out on other things that aren't Star Wars. Here's 50 cents for your piggy bank. Spend wisely. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Fellow Patreon supporter here. Love the channel. Hope you enjoy your vacation. I hope so. It should be fun. I just hope the weather isn't shitty. That's the only question mark for us. Who's your best and worst season of Survivor? Well, I haven't seen more than half of them, but my favorite season was what is the I'm blanking on the names of it. The season that Russell was introduced to me was the most fun to watch. Just to watch, like that was just such an entertaining show. Fuck, it was right on the tip of my tongue what season that was. But yeah, you'll know what season. Close second would be Winners at War. Least favorite season of Survivor. The one where they had Sandra and Boston Rob as like mentors. I didn't like that concept whatsoever. I didn't think they executed it very well, and I thought that the group of people that were on that season weren't very interesting. So that one, I'm sure there's worse ones, but like I said, I haven't seen most of them. What are your thoughts on Old Boy? I've actually never seen it. I'm one of those poor bastards that saw the Spike Lee one before I saw the original. And sorry. Brie Larson, worst actress of all time? No, absolutely not. I don't understand the hate for Brie Larson. Like, there were certain things that she said in interviews leading up to Captain Marvel that certainly were a little abrasive and were confusing and weird. But I never thought she said anything that was just like outright despicable, where it's just like, I can't stand this bitch. And that seems to be the approach of a lot of people online. And feeding into that whole thing we were talking about earlier about people that get financial gain off of outrage. There are channels out there that have had so many Brie Larson videos and thumbnails that they probably could retire off of the shit that they made off of just feeding into that hate that they probably didn't even give a fuck about. But no, she's a very good actress. I mean, I haven't seen her be bad in anything, and I've seen her be very good in some things. I will say that her choices, or maybe her agent's choices, whoever's making the decisions, haven't been great because she seemed pointless in Fast X. There was something else that she was in recently, a big blockbuster that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I didn't care for Captain Marvel, but it wasn't because of her. And there is a weirdness to where it doesn't feel like she fits in with the other people in Marvel, though. Like, there's been a lot of you'll see little interviews and clips where it just seems like they don't like her so much. Maybe that's a fact. Maybe she's a very unlikable person when you talk to her. I don't know. Don't know her. Never spoke with her. But worst actress of all time? No, she's not even a bad actress. So absolutely not. I saw your ranking of the favorite TV shows recently. Has been any shows in the last several years that would make it on your list? I don't know. Barry would have a chance of getting up there. I would have to look at the list and see what I'd have to get rid of. Barry would have a good chance of getting up there. I'm trying to think of shows that I've completed because I like Yellowstone a lot, but the final stretch of that show has has been in some high question here lately. 2.5 Men is one that I've been rewatching here recently that probably should have been on there, despite the fact that I hated the show after Charlie Sheen left and never bothered continuing to watch it. I've been rewatching the first 5 or 6 seasons over the past few months. It's something I just turn on while we're eating dinner. which is the same way I watch like King of Queens, things like that. And I've been laughing my ass off. So that probably should be on there. There's probably one or two others, but yeah, I can't think of them at the time. Matt Reeves' Clayface, supposed to be a serial killer type version like the Riddler from the 1940s comics. Thoughts on King of Comedy with De Niro? Yeah, that's an interesting take. Well, I have complete faith in whatever they do. King of Comedy was great. If you look at I think it was the top 10 movies of 1982, it's on there. But yeah, that was the first time that I watched it. I was getting ready to record. CP did that video with me, and he had mentioned King of Comedy. I was like, yeah, I was like, that's one of like 2 or 3 movies that I felt like I should watch, but I don't know if I have time. And he's like, dude, just watch it before you record. And I'm glad I did, because it made it pretty high up on that list. Very good movie that what it's talking about, what it's discussing is probably more relevant today than it was back when it came out. Oh, let's see. Do you try and go to any classic theaters where they show classic films or B-movie trash films? Watching a trashy horror movie with a room full of film nerds is better than most theater experiences. No, they have a theater down in downtown Savannah. I've never been there, so I don't even know what the crowd is like or how many people actually go on the regular, but they don't play like trashy movies. They play things like Die Hard and Jaws and all of the more prestige or praised movies, the classics, if you will. So no, I don't have a theater to go to where they play the trashy stuff. Thank you. Do you have a huge backlog of games or movies? Not so much games. If I don't play games, I pretty much just move on, but movies, absolutely. I have the list. I get people recommending me stuff all the time, and I'm like, I'll throw it on the list. It's like a fucking CVS receipt at this point. Would you cast the girl who played Tina in Halloween 5 if you made your own horror film? No. No. I mean, maybe that role wasn't her fault. Maybe that's how she was directed to be, but that character is one of the most annoying horror characters and performances ever. So no, that is the last thing that I would do. Favorite and least favorite of Survivor? Well, I don't know if that was the same person that answered. I just answered that though. Have you seen Operation Fortune and The Covenant yet? I've seen Operation Fortune. I talked about it either a month or 2 ago in my month wrap-up video, so you can get my thoughts over there. I thought it was okay. Covenant I have not seen yet. It's been on VOD, but I just haven't had the time to check it out. Hey, Cody, who do you prefer, Robert De Niro or Al Pacino? What are some of the best movies of each of them to you? Also, what are your thoughts on the Scorsese, De Niro movies, Taxi Driver, and Goodfellas? Getting a little fucking greedy with the multiple questions there, man. I'm just kidding. De Niro or Pacino, I mean, 2 of the greatest actors of all time. Personally, I prefer De Niro. I just prefer his slate of films. What are some of the best movies of each of them to you? Goodfellas. You can go Meet the Parents for something that's not like prestigious. You got The Godfather 1 and 2, which fits both of them. You have Heat. Let's see, De Niro, Midnight Run, my favorite comedy of all time. Can't forget that one. As far as Pacino, of course, you got Scarface, you got Carlito's Way, which I actually prefer to Scarface. You have pretty good little movies like Sea of Love that aren't like the more well-known ones that he has done. And what are your thoughts on the Scorsese, De Niro movies, Taxi Driver, and Goodfellas? Well, Goodfellas is in my top 5 of all time, so that answers that one. Taxi Driver is really damn good, but it's not nearly as rewatchable as Goodfellas, so it's not a movie that I would probably put on my top because I'm never in the mood to just watch Taxi Driver. Idea for a screwed up 31 on 31. Saw 10, Hostel 3, Wolf Creek 2, Cube 3, Human Centipede 3, Hills Have Eyes 4, Last House on the Left 2, I Spit on Your Grave 4. Do you hate us? do you want to see us miserable? Well, I will say this. You're on the right track. Hope you're having a good day and curious, would you do a review on the Universal Monster movies? I want to. I wanted to actually before we did 31 on 31, but the way that the polls worked out and the way our personal choices worked out, none of the Universal Monster movies got picked, which surprised me. So it wasn't the right time. But yes, I would love to do a review series where I go through all of the old classic black and white movies, and that will happen at some point. Thoughts on the Kraven the Hunter trailer? The Green Band trailer I thought was weak and ridiculous, and just it didn't give me any faith in the movie whatsoever. The Red Band trailer is better, but not by a lot. Like there was a lot of people I saw where they were like, no, okay, I saw the one trailer and I was really worried, but I saw this next one and now I'm so excited. And I'm like, well, putting a little bit of blood and gore is not going to fix very much for me. Like that's cool. I'd prefer it that if you're going to give me the option, but if the movie sucks, having him bite somebody's nose off is not going to make it awesome. And so, yeah, you have the trailer where I don't have a ton of knowledge of a lot of these comic book characters as far as their built-in decades of storyline. So I'm somewhat talking out of my ass. But the little bit that I know about Kraven the Hunter is that he's a dude. He's the greatest hunter in the world. That is his superpower, is his intellect as a hunter, not super lion blood. And so that whole aspect was dumb to me, where I'm like, okay, you had to throw a supernatural element in there. Now it's weird instead of him just being a compelling, like really fucking cunning and evil hunter guy. I'm also sick of this trend that we're in, not just in Sony, but in general, where we're going to do a movie based on a villain. But because we're doing that, they're not so much a villain. They're kind of anti-hero-ish. They're kind of got some good stuff about them. Just make a fucking movie about a villain. It's just weird. I don't understand. You can have a villain be the central person and just have worse people that he's going after, and it'll work just fine. You don't have to make him heroic. So that is weird. I mean, I really liked the first Venom. I have not rewatched it since theater, so I don't know if that has aged. I didn't like the Carnage movie very much. I didn't like Morbius at all. And this trailer doesn't give me any faith. I just don't have any faith in this Sony verse that they're doing. Like the idea on paper I thought was great. I was like, okay, do some solid little origin stories and build out your universe with the villains and the side characters so that when you eventually do take Spider-Man back, now you got this universe already built out for him to just be inserted into. Really cool reverse engineering there. But their quality has done anything but that. So yeah, it might end up being fun, but no, I didn't like the trailer. Thoughts on Train to Busan? It's my favorite zombie movie. Would like to see a sequel to The Summer of '84. What would you do in the sequel? Train to Busan was good. It was a bit overhyped for me, but I thought it was good. Very emotional, especially the end. So I understand why it has such a fan base to it. Sequel to Summer of '84? No. No. That is one of those movies, and I've had people ask me this question a lot over the past couple of years since it came out. We tend, when we watch a movie or a show or whatever that we love, we want it to continue. We want more. But there's times where I think it's necessary to stop and just let something exist as itself. Let something exist as a completed story as is. And I think Summer of '84 is a perfect example of that, to where when you get to the end of that movie and you get to what happens and you get to the things that the villain of the movie says to the protagonist and by extension, us, the audience, following up that story in any way, shape, or form would completely destroy the power and the impact of what is done at the end of that movie. Because the entire point of the end of Summer of '84 is the paranoia of not knowing. I'm trying to be very vague, but if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. About you never know if or when this is going to come back. And that is the horror of it. Well, if you make a sequel, now you know when or if it's coming back. When or if the words that are spoken are going to come to fruition. And to me, that would dampen the impact of the end of that film. So I don't want, as much as I love Summer of '84, I don't want a follow-up whatsoever. Hello, Tiger Lily. Hello. Are you still planning to do the 50 childhood movies? I would like to at some point. It's just a matter of when. What he's talking about is, or what they're talking about, I don't know who it is. What Dog Lover is talking about. I did a couple of years ago with Brian Lomax, did my top 50 action, top 50 comedy, top 50 horror, and my top 100 movies of all time. And I had said at some point I would like to do another one of those where I do like my top 50 childhood movies, where I bring out like Disney movies and things like Blank Check and Sandlot, or Disney Channel original movies, things that I would not put in my top 100 of all time whatsoever, but they're movies that I adore. I have a lot of nostalgia for, and I rewatch constantly with my kids. I would like to do that. When, though, I don't know. It's all a matter of time. Love all your 31 and 31. Have you ever got to see Night of the Demons? It's kind of 80s cheese, but it's still good. I watched it once. I didn't care too much for it, but I'm due for a rewatch. There was an era where a lot of these movies I had never seen before got unbearably overhyped by a Facebook group that I was in. And a lot of movies that I watched based off of that group, I don't have the best experience with and don't have the best memories with. So I want to allow time of washing that out of my memory and then going back and actually giving it a fair shake because I mean, like The Prowler was one to where people were talking about this thing like it was the most underappreciated, unsung hero of 80s slashers ever. And I watched it and it took me 5 times just to get through it because I was so fucking bored and I kept falling asleep. And by the time I finally watched it, I was like, really? This? Like, you fuckers just get so much mileage out of Tom Savini gore. It is unbearable. Nonetheless, I don't go into them too far. But yes, there was a number of movies that I watched that got ruined because of just a massive amount of overhype, and Night of the Demons was one of them. But I would like to revisit it at some point. Thank you, Dennis. Just watched your updated DC ranking. 100% agree with you on Man of Steel. It's an awesome movie that deserves more credit. I agree. That's just one of those movies I don't understand the majority of criticism for. Chucky TV show is Cobra Kai for slasher fans. Maybe. I don't understand the comparison, I guess. Would you do a Survivor season ranking video? No. That wouldn't make sense for my channel. That would bomb. I mean, like I said, there's probably I would be shocked if that video got more than 2,000 views. And at 115,000 viewers, that's bad. So yeah, there's certainly some people like yourself that would enjoy it. There's a certain part of me, if I ever got to a point where I had seen all the seasons, which going back to what I said earlier, like if I was going to commit to that project, there's 43, 44 seasons of Survivor. I've seen maybe 15 of them, 20 of them. So you're talking about 25 seasons of television that are 13 to 15 hours a piece. That's a lot of fucking time and work for a video that nobody's going to watch. So no. Thoughts on Game of Thrones as a whole? I like the show. Always found it overhyped. Because it's when I finally did sit down and watch the show, me and my wife watched it whenever season 7 was playing. We kind of caught back up and watched the previous seasons so that we could end it while the show was ending. And it was basically like every other season was really good, where you have a season with all of the payoff and things going on and interesting action sequences and big character moments and holy shit moments. And then you'd have a whole season of people just walking. And don't get me wrong, there's merit in the setup. There's merit in those quieter moments. It doesn't have to be mile a minute, but there's stretches of that show that is hard, hard to get through because just nothing really is happening. And it's a very dense show with a lot of characters and a lot of different towns and all these things that is a lot of information to try to keep up with. And sometimes you don't see somebody or a plot line doesn't really pick up to anything relevant until like a season later. And you can't, at least I struggled sometimes with like, who the fuck is that? Was that season 2 that they mentioned that? Like it was a good show. The moments where it was great was like some of the best shit ever. Like you had I think season 4 and season 6 were my favorites. So like season 4 was pretty damn incredible. Season 6 with like the Battle of the Bastards and stuff was fucking mind blowing. I wasn't as hard on season 7 and season 8 as everybody else, but I also think I was detached from it enough that I didn't take as much offense to some of the quality dips and some of the them being able to just travel very easily now. And we used to take 2 seasons to do it. And there's a part of my brain that's like, thank God I don't have to wait 8 fucking weeks for them to do this. So I don't know. It's a good show. It's a show that I would recommend to certain people with certain asterisks to their expectations, but it's not a show that would ever penetrate like my top 20 or anything like that. I'm also not a big fantasy guy. So the fact that I'm praising it as much shows you that's among the best fantasy shit I've ever seen. Friday the 13th Part 4 versus Sleepaway Camp. We're gonna go with Friday the 13th Part 4 on that one. I love Sleepaway Camp, but well, actually, that's tough. They're pretty close. I don't know. I feel like that I have I think I had Sleepaway Camp in my top 50 horror films. I don't remember if I had Final Chapter on there, but they would be pretty close. One of them is much more serious than the other, although it's weird to say that the Final Chapter is the serious one, but Sleepaway Camp is like B-movie trash level good. But I love them both. Do you Goosebumps favorite episode or book? Never read too many of the books, but yes, Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark were big when I was a kid. And favorite episode was always The Haunted Mask. I always loved The Haunted Mask. Sorry, guys, trying to get through these last few. I want to try to end it at about 2 hours. So, ever seen From Black? I'd love if you reviewed it. What is From Black? Hang on, sorry. My daughter was texting me with my mom's cell phone. From Black movie. Yeah, I have never heard of that. What is that? What year is that? I don't know. I'll put it on the list. Which band gave you the best concert experience? I'm lucky to where I've actually never seen a bad concert. So I've had really good concert experiences with everybody that I've seen. Alice Cooper, I think, is a strong contender for somebody who puts on the best shows. I've seen Alice now 4 times, and all 4 times he just fucking kills it. And even now, where he's significantly older than when I first saw him when I was 10, that was my first concert. I just saw him a couple months ago at Rockville. Same energy, same quality, same confidence, same stage presence, same just gripping the fucking audience by their nuts the whole time. So Alice is fucking awesome. Also talking about Rockville, Pantera. If you don't want to call them Pantera, the Pantera tribute band, whatever. Pantera with Charlie Benante and Zach Wilde were fucking incredible. That was insane. Uh, I I saw a concert back in like 2013, 2012. That was Hailstorm, Godsmack, and Stained, and that was a fucking awesome show. Alter Bridge has been great every single time that I've seen them. So I don't have one that was like this definitive, like so much better than all the others best concert experience. Cause like I said, every one that I've ever been to has been good. So yeah. If I had to give one, I would say Alice Cooper, just because I've seen him now 4 times since 2000, and all 4 times he just fucking blows the lids off. I plan on buying a Cameo, anything to not ask for. Not necessarily. I mean, within reason, I think it's obvious what things I would not want to be obligated to say. I mean, they're meant to be shout outs or for, a birthday gift or something like that. So, or if you, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I wouldn't buy a Cameo and like say how much you love Freddy's Dead. Like that would be stupid. So beyond that, I don't know. I don't know what you're hinting at. Mask Guy. Craven does have super abilities through mystic potions, but not lion's blood. I highly recommend Craven's Last Hunt if you want to know more about the character. One of the best Spider-Man stories. Well, even so, like mystic potions, okay, that's fine. But I'm talking about like now he's a super villain, as in he basically the same thing as Spider-Man. I got bit by a super lion. And now I have lion vision and I could see everything. Like that just kind of makes him less interesting to me. Hey, Cody, love your channel. Always wanted to know, what are your thoughts on Lucio Fulci? Have you seen any of his films? I have not. We'll go back to what I said earlier about a Facebook group that overhyped everything. I had a very bad introduction to Italian horror, and that was the flavor of the month at the time. And so all of a sudden, all these movies were getting recommended like they were the greatest thing ever. And the first 3 that I chose to watch, with the exception of Suspiria was good. The other two that I was recommended to watch for like my gateway drug into Italian cinema and giallo films, I didn't like at all. And so I just kind of pulled back. And so no, I haven't seen any of Fulci's films. If you were a NECA figure, what would your accessories be? I mean, if it was me, like actually me, it would probably have to you probably have to have a beanie, you have to have a microphone, a camera, movie tickets, PlayStation 5 controller, and an electric guitar and a spatula. I don't get all the hype from Miguel from Across the Spider-Verse. Um, Miguel, what was that? The Spider-Man 2099 or whatever. Yeah. I, I'm keeping tempered everything because that's quite literally half of a movie. Like it's hard for me to really fairly judge or make sense in my head what I think of Across the Spider-Verse because it's half a movie. And so by the time we get beyond the Spider-Verse, when we get the rest of everything, I could adore what this is. But right now, like I was thinking earlier, like I saw Elemental with my daughter, and I was like, "Is that my favorite animated film that I've seen in the last couple of years?" And I like, "Oh wait, Across the Spider Verse was just 2 weeks ago," and I was trying to think of which one I liked better. And on one hand, there's no question that there was elements of Across the Spider Verse that I liked better. But on the other hand, I don't have the other half of the story, and so it feels weird to even think that because Elemental, I walked out feeling completed, and Across the Spider Verse, I walked out saying, well, okay. Well, I'll wait till they get the other half, I guess, to be continued. And so it's weird. But yeah, I don't know. I don't get the hype for a lot of things nowadays because early reactions have just gotten redonkulous. Favorite and least favorite Survivor winner. Well, Boston Rob is my favorite, with Russell close behind that. And I really like I haven't watched Survivor in so long. I used to be able to just rattle off all these names. Fuck. I can't remember the dude's name. Sandra's pretty cool too. I love um Parvati. I always liked her. Least favorite winner. I mean, there have been some boring winners. I don't know if I would say least favorite. Like the chick that won over Russell in his first season was just kind of a not very interesting character, even though it's really her. And the only reason she won was just because Russell pissed so many people off, they wanted to spite him. So there's been a lot of people like that that have won that are just kind of not very interesting. And somebody else in the season that didn't won is like the star of that season. But yeah, that's that. I guess that's my answer. But Boston Rob's always been my favorite as far as the winners. Have you seen Raw Deal with Arnold and Naked Gun? I've never seen Naked Gun. I saw Raw Deal as a kid, but not recent enough to remember anything about it. Texas Chainsaw, Saw, Wrong Turn. How would you rank these franchises? Just the franchises, not every individual movie. Wow. Wrong Turn's last. I guess Saw would be on top, although Texas Chainsaw, it's hard to say because the highs of Texas Chainsaw are significantly higher than the highs of Saw for me, but the lows of Texas Chainsaw are significantly lower than the lows of Saw. So I think by averaging them out, Saw probably would edge out Texas Chainsaw for me. But it feels weird to say that that's better than Texas Chainsaw because I could give a fuck about pretty much any of the Saw movies where I genuinely love the Texas Chainsaw remake. So yeah, I guess I'll go Saw, Texas Chainsaw, Wrong Turn. How you going, mate from Australia? Wanted to say good day. Good day. Good day, mate. Appreciate it, man. Have you seen the movie Bone Tomahawk? I have. I need to watch it again though, because that was another one that got wildly overhyped for me. Where I was like, yeah, it's good, but I like his other two films more than I like Bone Tomahawk. I think that Brawl in Cell Block 99 is his best, and I like Dragged Across Concrete a bit more than Bone Tomahawk. But again, I need to rewatch it. Hello, wife. I'll be done here in 12 minutes. Are you a fan of the original Jacob's Ladder? Yes, it's a good movie. It's wild. It's very trippy with the way that they visualize his hallucinations and stuff with the like the people doing that. So yeah, it's a good movie. Thoughts on Hostel and Eli Roth? I haven't rewatched Hostel or Hostel Part 2 in a very long time, and it's because I kinda reached a point to where movies that are just there to gross you out, I just don't really get any value out of them anymore, so I just kinda chose not to rewatch them. Hostel was weird because when I first saw Hostel in theaters, I didn't know hardly anything about it, but me and my dad went to the theaters to check it out, and that was the most disturbing experience that I had ever had in the theater up to that point, to where we walked out of the movie in the theater just feeling off the rest of the day. It felt like we just watched an actual snuff film and watched people get killed. Like, we both will tell you that if you ask us about that experience, like, we just felt weird to the point where I had bought a Seven Dust Greatest Hits album before we went to the theaters because back in the when we first kind of moved to Savannah, that was kind of a thing. Like if we went to the theater, we'd go to Best Buy first, we'd usually get a movie or a CD, and then we'd go to the movie. Because if you're going into town to Savannah, you might as well make use of that time. So I had bought a Seven Dust Greatest Hits, and Seven Dust is, fairly aggressive music. And so we walk out of Hostel and we're just kind of like, we just feel weird. We're not talking to each other. And we just kind of get in the truck and head home. And we made it about halfway. The music comes back on when the truck starts, and we got about halfway through a song of Seven Dust, and we were like, click, don't need angry vibes right now. So yeah, Hostel was weird. And it was the point where I never really thought that I would have the interest in rewatching it. But then I bought it when it came out. I rewatched it a few times. And I used to really like that movie, but again, something about it just because it's got a decent story to it and it's got merit to it, but for the most part, it's just like it's literal torture porn. If any movie of that era deserves that title, it's the Hostel movies. And so, how would I think about them if I watched them now? I'm not sure. Eli Roth in general is extreme hit or miss with me. There's things about his style, there's things about his approach, there's things about what he achieves that I think he does really well. And there's other aspects to him that I think is just glaring weaknesses in his movies that are always going to be there, namely his humor. His humor is very weird. Like we talked about Cabin Fever very briefly earlier. Cabin Fever, the idea of like a slasher film where there's not actually a killer, it's just this disease, is a really cool concept. Really gnarly gore, which he always nails. Some somewhat entertaining characters while being a little extreme, which is pretty common for his movies, but his humor is just really weird. And he tends to go for excessive gore, excessive violence, excessive, um, unforgiving, bleak tone. And there's things about that that I don't think will ever fully work for me. To the point where my favorite movie of his is Death Wish, which most people hate. And I really liked that movie because that was like to me the most balanced of all of his movies. But yeah, he's a guy I've got my eye on. I'm curious about this Thanksgiving thing that he's going to be doing. But yeah, he hasn't done any movie that I've been like, that's fucking awesome. And the only one that came close was Death Wish. Any plans for another non-horror 31 on 31 in the future? Yeah. I mean, we've got to a point where we tend to do multiple ones per year now. I think we've settled into the point to where just because me and Sean specifically have gotten so busy with both of us being full time now that I think realistically the most that you're going to see going forward is two a year, one mid year that is non horror, or like this year, both of them are going to be horror because vampires and werewolves were horror, but vampires and werewolves also had a lot of action and stuff in them too. But most of the time going forward, you're probably going to see one mid year that is probably not horror, and then the one in October will always be horror. So yeah, I mean, we've got a ton of ideas. Me and CP specifically have talked extensively throwing ideas out there. Vampires and werewolves is one that we've had in our back pocket for a while. Any thoughts on Saw X? Zero thoughts, zero expectations, zero fucks to give whatsoever. It's just like if there's any franchise that has just been sucking wind and just artificially keeping itself alive by just tourniqueting wounds and whatever, it's been the Saw franchise. I mean, ever since they killed the dude in the second movie, the third movie, excuse me, Ever since they killed the dude in the third movie, they've been trying to figure out how to keep things going. And in my opinion, they haven't done a very good job. I know some people love that franchise. I like the first three movies. I only really like the second film. And beyond that, I could give a fuck. The rest of the movies in the main films, I don't think are all that great. You have Jigsaw, which was the first attempt at a reboot. I didn't think that was very good. Spiral, there was things about it that I liked. But there again, second attempt at a reboot didn't work. They're not continuing it. Now you get Saw X, third reboot in a row. And what are they doing? I guess they're going to bring John Kramer back. And it's like, how many different fucking ways can you bring this dude back? How many years of shit does he have planned out? It's like the dude planned out the next 4 fucking decades, and he's got tapes for every single version of events. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I don't care. Maybe it'll be great, but I don't care. What did you think of the Up short before Elemental? It was fine as a companion piece to Up, but the only thing that was frustrating me was that you go to the movies, and when you go to a Pixar movie, you got 25 minutes of previews, then you got a 10-minute short, and then the movie starts. And it's just like I was sitting there like, fuck, we got a short now. God, even my daughter, she's like, when are they going to start the movie? So yeah, it was fine. What are your thoughts on the Meg 2? The trailer has convinced me that I'll like it more than the first one because it looks a lot more self-aware with how ridiculous that concept is. The first one could have been a lot better if they had leaned into the R rating, I think. Now, contrasting what I said about Craven earlier, the Meg is not a very good movie, but they could have had a lot more fun with carnage with that concept if they didn't handcuff themselves to a PG-13 rating. And that, to me, that just neutered the movie. Now, this one's still PG-13, I believe, but they also have dinosaurs and other weird shit in here that makes it look like it's just going to be off the wall ridiculous. And so at least they're leaning into it somehow with the silliness. Thoughts on the movie Antlers? I bought it and have yet to watch it. That are my thoughts. It's on the list. What do you think of Arnold's movie Sabotage? It's okay. There's aspects to that movie that is cool, but it's a very underwhelming movie. It's not very good. Like there's some good violence and gore in there. There's some decent fighting and some interesting group of characters. The narrative itself, it doesn't come together very well with the twists and turns by the end of it. Arnold is okay in it, but it's not as awesome as it should be. So yeah, I don't know. Outside of End of Watch and Fury, I think, are genuinely great. And I have a lot of fun with Street Kings. Beyond that, I think David Ayer is like a one-trick pony. And he just has the same couple of elements that he puts into all of his films, and none of them have been all that great to me. You're going to check out Dead City. Honestly, I haven't had much faith in it, but I really enjoyed the first episode. New York is a nice change of pace. I'd probably not. I suffered quite literally through the last 4 seasons of that show, binging through them so that I could get that ranking out. I genuinely enjoyed most of season 9, but even that season just felt artificially extended and had the extra episodes, and then they kind of pay off that storyline in the next season. The first few episodes, it's just weird. But I'm over Walking Dead. I'm over Walking Dead. And the fact that they hype up the ending of the show just to have everybody just go off and do spinoffs is just like, God, fuck you. Fuck you and your products, because that's what this is at this point. It's a product. Thoughts on the new Stain song and album coming out? Cannot wait. I love the new song. I've listened to it constantly. It feels like Stained is like back with a vengeance. It also has a very like 2000s kind of feel to it, which I actually really like. They're not like reinventing the wheel, trying to go way outside of what their core sound is. It's fucking awesome. So yeah, I cannot wait. Me and the wife are going to go see them second week of July, something like that. We're seeing Matchbox 20 on July 3rd, and then I think July 3rd, and then a week after that we're seeing Stain in Orlando, and I can't wait. All right, let's see. Is that all of the super chats? No, I don't. Okay. Thank you so much. Top 10 horror villain deaths. Have a great one. Top 10. Wow. One of my favorite, I can't do 10, but one of my favorites has always been Chucky in Child's Play 3, where he gets his face cut off by that scythe and then he gets thrown into the fan. To me, that's always been one of the more iconic ones. What are your thoughts on John Hughes? Ever plan on filming a video ranking all of his movies? Enjoyed all the other director rankings you put out? I would love to do that, actually. That would be a really good one. Whenever things calm down a bit, to do kind of just a more comfort, enjoyable type of ranking. That would be fun. But I love John Hughes. I mean, you got movies like Weird Science and 16 Candles and Breakfast Clubs that are absolute classics. You got movies like Uncle Buck and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles that are in my top 5, top 10 comedies of all time. So, yeah, I adore John Hughes movies. And thank you so much there. All right, I'm going to do one more question. One more, and we'll end it. Would you do a Rescue Me season ranking or anything? Actually, no, there's part of me that wanted to do that. I was revisiting Rescue Me sometime last year. Whenever I had bought Hulu for Chucky, and I just kept it around, and I was looking through some of the things that they had, and I started rewatching Rescue Me for the first time since the 2000s. And I got through the first 4 seasons and like 3 episodes into season 5. I still love the first 2 seasons. Season 3 is very good, but it certainly drops off a bit from the first 2. Season 4, because I was in high school at the time, I actually missed a lot of that season when it was first being played, and that season sucked. That was rough to get through. The storylines that they were choosing, I was like, "Oh my god, this just lost all momentum." And that kinda killed it for me because I watched the first couple of episodes of season 5, which I remember liking a lot. That was the one where Michael J. Fox came into it, and I just stopped watching the show. Like, there was a strong possibility if I had gotten through all of it, I might have just done a ranking video just to have fun and do something different. But, yeah, I fell off of that one quick after season 4. That I have a hard time believing that if I did finish the show, that wouldn't be the last one, the last one on my ranking. All right, guys, that is gonna be it for me. I gotta go and, mingle with my family. I gotta go complete packing and get everything ready for tomorrow. I am gonna be back on tonight on Gen X Reviews, Rudy's channel, because Rudy's gonna have me and CP and maybe some others. There's some other people that were invited that weren't committed just yet to do a spoiler talk on The Flash. That is gonna be at 9 p.m. EST on his channel. I don't know if he's advertised it yet or put out a link yet, but 9 p.m. Eastern on Gen X Reviews. I'll be there tonight for at least an hour or so talking about The Flash. We'll talk about The Flash. We'll talk about spoilers. We'll talk about the future of the DC universe, I'm sure. It's Rudy's show, so he's steering it, but I'm sure we're going to get into all of that. So see you guys there. Thank you for all the multitude of super chats as always and the really good questions. And I will see you guys on the next one and look forward to, if nothing else, you'll get Raiders of the Lost Ark this weekend, but I'm going to try to get hopefully 2 of them ready tonight so that I can edit. Everybody have a good night.